Should we get started, Megan, or?
Not quite yet. It has to get onto YouTube first.
For all the people watching us on YouTube.
Yep. All right, you're good to go, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. Welcome everybody virtually to the February 6th Burlingame City Council meeting. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to February, Black History Month. We will start, as always, with the Pledge of Allegiance, and our Chief of Police, Michael Matucci, has agreed to lead us. So, Chief.
Thank you. Please stand if you can. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. That was a Burlingame flag flying proudly in one of our neighborhoods. So that takes us to roll call, Madam City Clerk, if you would.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Here.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Here.
Councilmember Beach.
Here.
Vice Mayor Coulson.
Here.
Mayor Brownrigg.
Here. All present and accounted for. We did have closed session items this evening. Mr. City Attorney, would you like to report out?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is no reportable action from tonight's closed session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Which brings us to upcoming events. First of all, I'll just to note again that this is Black History Month. There is, for a couple of us who are fortunate enough to be at the soft opening of 12 Month, a beautiful place, a great addition to Burlingame's amazing array of restaurants, but they have a very nice mural depicted to peanuts. And it reminded me of George Washington Carver and his incredible contributions to this country. Over 300 inventions, including in how to use peanuts. Interestingly, one of the myths that I used to have that he invented peanut butter is not true, but he did invent lots of other things, including chili oil and shampoo from peanuts. And the beauty of peanuts is that they restore nitrogen in the soil. So a huge contribution to a great chunk of our agriculture in this country. And in our meeting next time, February 21st, we will have a briefing by the NAACP San Mateo, telling us about activities going on in our county. So thanks for that. Other upcoming events from our Park and Rec, we have an event called Kids Night Out, but it really should be called Parents Night Off. Because if you have somebody between kindergarten and fifth grade, you may deposit them with our wonderful Park and Rec staff. They will amuse them and play games, and you can go out and have a date night or even just read a book and put your feet up and not have to worry about the kids. So take advantage of that. That is this coming Friday from 6 to 9 p.m. Also, we have coming up on Thursday, February 9th, a presentation from Caltrans at our community center that is going to be an update on the El Camino Real renovation project with a special focus on the tree canopy, which is a crucial part of this project for our city. So I encourage you to come out and see where Caltrans is. We set some design standards a long time ago, and now we're going to see how it's all turning out. And there's even going to be an interactive feature of some sort. On the library side, sorry, I just have to actually pull that up. Give me 1 second. I apologize for not being prepared. Wait for it. Here we go. So Peninsula Library's 8th annual Young Adult Novelists Convention, which I won't try to do the acronym for because it looks like something from the Defense Department, will take place Saturday, February 11th in the Burlingame Community Center. Lots of great authors. Registration can be done through our library's website. And in the library, there's going to be a book discussion about the book Redefining Womanhood by Iranian-American author and journalist Suzanne Pari in conversation with award-winning New York Times bestselling author Michelle Richmond. That's on Tuesday, February 7th. So tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at the Lane Room in the library. So great stuff. And just before I go around the horn to see if there's any other upcoming events, I'll mention two other things. This is our penultimate meeting virtually. Our last meeting virtually will be February 21st. And in March, we will be back in person, although with hybrid technology, so that you can still join us by Zoom from home if you care to. And another tip of the hat to our city clerk for getting all of that technology set up. And finally, a little shout out I wanted to give to two Burlingame restaurants that were called out as among Yelp's 100 best places to eat in the country. Gigi's Cafe, which is over on the Bayside doing sandwiches, and Curry Hyuga, which is over on Broadway. So of the 100 best places to eat in the country, those were two, and maybe the only two from the Bay Area. I couldn't quite understand the way it was written. So kudos to them. And with that, are there any colleagues or staff? Are there any other items coming up that I've missed? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on. And actually, it gives me great pleasure. Well, I'll hand it over to our city manager, but very proud of the work that our library team and our Park and Rec have done in our United Against Hate Week, and in particular, community dialogue that was arranged last week. So over to our city manager for this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we did have a community conversation related to our United Against Hate efforts. And the specific impetus for this community conversation was an anti-Semitic act at the high school that happened back in November, where someone, not a student, an adult, came onto campus and pasted a couple of sort of nasty anti-Semitic flyers up on a wall or a bulletin board or something. I'm not sure exactly the details, but it was not good. It was pretty horrific, actually. And so out of that effort, the principal approached the city, Principal Fong approached the city and asked if we would do a joint community meeting. And so that happened last week. We had our mayor spoke, we had our city librarian spoke, our police chief, Mike Matucci spoke, Rabbi Dan Feeder spoke from Peninsula Temple Shalom, and then Randall Booker, who's the new superintendent at the high school district, and Principal Jen Fong also spoke. And then there were some questions from the community. And so Brad and his team have headed up a lot of our United Against Hate efforts. And so you have asked him to give a little recap of what happened at the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you've almost done my job for me, Lisa, but it was.
I didn't know he was going to make me talk.
It was a great event. It was really well attended. Mayor Brownrigg did a great introduction and talking about some goals for the meeting. And it was really, I thought it was really great that Randall Booker, the new superintendent for San Mateo Unified, came and spoke and kind of talked about the same thing, talked about their values and things like that. And then it was turned over to me, and I did talk about how the library plays a role in we've always played a role in educating the community, but we have, in the last 5 years, we've definitely pushed the envelope more with our equity team and with United Against Hate and that sort of thing here at the library. So that was our role that we played, getting our, pushing these out of social media. Chief Matucci did a great job of kind of lining up things and how how his inspector had done some research into possible leads. I know that we actually gave him a lead because right around the time that we started posting things, we had a very odd individual kind of do some strange things here at the library. So we had a lead that they ran down, didn't turn into anything, but so that was Chief Matucci's talk. And then I had a little last minute poet we have a poet in residence, Ava Chin, who has come to the city council before and presented. She did a great poem on anti-hate, which was nice to include the students. And then honestly, I have to say, Rabbi Feeder had a difficult job of representing all faith leaders of Burlingame, which in and of itself is almost an impossible task. But I really, really loved what he had to say. He did a great job, and if he's listening tonight, and I hope he is, I thought that it was on point, and especially when he was saying, talk to your kids. That's the main thing, is because this is high school level, and by that time things are kind of set in your brain. Not that the kids had anything to do with what was posted on the school. I'm not saying that, but talk to your kids at a younger age. That was his main point, I feel like, and I thought it was on point. And then we had the Q&A, and it was really good to hear different viewpoints. There were some people that had some issues with possible curriculum things. The school told their point of view. They had a lot of the Principal Fong talked about a lot of things that the students had done at the school. And I know that our teen advisory board had come up, and they are students at BHS. They came up with a lot of things for the library to do. So I know that there was a lot of synchronicity with what was going on at school, what was going on here at the library, a lot of their activities and their own student meetings. So overall, I thought it was a great meeting. I thought there was a lot of things that were very cogent that were talked about that night. And I hated that it was such a horrible incident that brought us all together like that, but it was a good meeting. So that was my point of view.
I appreciate that readout, and I felt the same vibe in the room. We were fortunate enough to have council members Beach and Colson also there. Do either of you want to share impressions from that evening?
Great to see such a positive turnout and people really engaged. And I thought you did a great job too, Mr. Mayor, really representing the city up there. Beautiful words and sentiments.
I would agree. And a big thanks to Margaret's staff too, who really hustled around, thoughtfully organized the room, stood around on a late day to help everybody out.
Yeah.
And overall, really great, just a great event.
Yeah, and just proud of our community. It is always sad when it's a tragedy or bad news that brings people together, but it is a reminder that we can come together. And we were also graced by the participation of friends from Menlo Park. So the mayor of Menlo Park was there, and one of the school teachers. And the little Menlo Park nod at the end of the meeting pulled me aside and said, "We want to do this. This is great. You guys this is super." So thanks to, I guess, Mayor Colson at the time for getting all of this kicked off, and just proud to be a part of it. So thanks to Brad and Lisa and the whole team, Mike, for all of that. It's one of the many things that makes our community special. So that's a great recap. Thank you for that. I guess I need to take public comment. I don't know if there's anybody in the public that wants to comment.
I don't have any emails on this, and I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, then that will move us on to public comment. So this is the time, if you're a member of the public, where you can raise an issue with the city council that's not on our agenda. If it's on the agenda, then you should wait for that item. Because it's not agendized, we can't really discuss it, but we are very happy to listen. So with that as a preview, Megan, are there any public comments to be had?
I don't have any emails on this one, and I saw a hand go up for a second, but it went back down. Oop, it's back up. So Josh, if you want to go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
One moment. Can you, are you, okay, you can't see me. Anyways, good evening. My name is Josh Amoroso, and I'm coming to you this evening as a board member of HIP Housing. And for those that are not familiar or know the good work that HIP Housing is doing, we are an affordable nonprofit housing organization operating throughout San Mateo County. For over 50 years, we've invested in human potential by improving the housing and lives of people in our community. On behalf of HIP Housing, I would like to thank the Honorable Mayor and the members of the City of Burlingame for your enduring support of our organization and affordable housing solutions. As a symbol of our appreciation for your partnership, a couple of weeks ago, we dropped off the HIP Housing's 2023 calendar, which you'll see. Hopefully you guys have all seen it, and if not, hopefully they will be passed out to the council members and the mayor. But what you'll see is the calendar features art from 12 young artists living in the county, selected from a pool of over 250 entries. Every month corresponds with a drawing of home and a quote that answers, what does home mean to you? And it goes without saying, we are incredibly proud to do our work throughout the San Mateo County and the fine city of Burlingame. And it all is very important to combat and fight and to create affordable housing solutions for low income individuals and families. And on a very positive note, each year we have the pleasure of housing over 1,200 people, thanks to our strong partnerships with local governments such as the City of Burlingame. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amoroso. And while we're not allowed to comment, I know I can say on behalf of everybody on council how much we appreciate the job that HIP does. So thank you.
I'm fine.
Any other comments, Megan?
No, that's it.
Okay. Then we'll close public comment at this point, and that takes us to the approval of the consent calendar, which has up to 8I as items. Are there any matters that colleagues would like to pull for further discussion? I see heads shaking, so that's a no. Are there any comments from the public, Madam City Clerk, that would have an item pulled?
I don't have an email pulling an item, and I don't see any hands raised.
Then I would welcome a motion to approve items 8A through I.
So moved.
I'll second. Beach.
Motion to approve the consent calendar in whole by Councilmember Ortiz and seconded by Councilmember Beach. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Stevenson,
Aye.
Councilmember Ortiz,
Aye.
Councilmember Beach,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Coulson,
Aye.
Mayor Brownrigg.
Yes. So that's approved. I do want to call out a special thank you to whoever, probably Jeremy, but whoever drafted the notes for the goal setting, which were very thorough. And anybody who might have missed the goal setting would really learn a lot about our budget and what we think are the top issues before us if they read those notes. So kudos for that. That takes us to our public hearings. And the first one is item 9A, which is to review something we haven't reviewed this one before. So I'll hand it over to our city attorney. Is that right, Madam City Manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And I have a very short staff report on this one. So this is an introduction and first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 9.04 titled Animals of the Burlingame Municipal Code. So currently the municipal code limits the number of dogs that can be kept on any one premises to no more than 2 dogs, with no limit on the number of puppies that you can keep. And the Muni Code then goes on to limit the number of cats that any one premises can keep to a total of 3 cats, with no limit to the number of kittens. Recently, and then the city council can allow for more than 2 dogs or 3 cats, not to exceed a total of 5 animals altogether. But in order to allow for that, there has to be a hearing in front of the council and a resolution passed to allow for that additional number of pets. This item is being raised now because recently we had residents who have come and said, hey, we see that you have this setup. I'm interested in doing it, but quite frankly, the whole doing a full court press in front of the council felt like a bit much. And so staff thought that it would be a better use of council's time and a more efficient way to respond to our residents if the ordinance was amended to delegate that authority to allow for additional pets to the city manager or her designee. And so that's what this ordinance does. It would, if approved, it would allow a total number of, if somebody wanted to keep more than those number of animals, it would allow the city manager to have that authority to hold that hearing for a total of no more than or more than 5 animals, and it would not require a hearing in front of the council. I do want to stress that these ordinance amendments are meant for pet owners and not for breeders, professional breeders who are pursuing a commercial business. Those regulations for pet breeders would still be regulated by zoning regulations in our planning code. So that's the conclusion of my report. I am happy to take any questions.
And bad jokes, probably.
Open for that too.
Are there any questions for the city attorney? Yes, Madam Vice Mayor.
Just a quick one. So this is on dogs and cats. I didn't pull up the municipal code and I probably should have, but do we have the similar type things for things like rabbits and turtles and chickens and?
No.
So what if somebody has 5 rabbits?
Right. So we do not have any, doing a quick search on this. So we don't have any limits on the numbers of rabbits or poultry. We do, I take that back. We can have no more, you can have no more than 4, see.
Calling birds.
You can have no more than 12 poultry or rabbits on any single lot.
Okay, I was just kind of curious, like how that all bifurcates. Yeah. That's my only question.
I think our city clerk wants to know if a really large cat counts as 2.
Vincent did have some comments on this ordinance.
Any other questions? If not, then we'll open it up for, is this where we open it up for a public hearing and public comment?
Yeah, so we don't, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, you don't have to have me read the title of the ordinance anymore. There's a new law that allows it if it's written in the agenda.
noticed that.
You don't have to read it, but
Yeah.
we do have to make a motion to open up the public hearing, right? City Attorney?
You can just open up the public hearing, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, nice. No more motions.
Okay, so just a motion at the end once we've
Yes,
discussed it. Okay, good to know, new process. So with that being the case, then let's open it up and see if there are any comments from the public.
I don't have any emails on this one and I don't see any hands raised.
Right. Well, then.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
and a partridge in a pear tree, I make a motion to bring it back for a second reading and adoption.
Excellent. Is there a second for that motion?
I second.
And so I'm just making sure that we've done this the right way. So yes, then let's have our roll call vote, please, Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember
I'm
Stevens,
sorry, beg your pardon. Motion by Councilmember Beach, seconded by Councilmember Stevenson.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Aye.
Councilmember Ortiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Coulson,
Yes.
Mayor Brownrigg.
Yes, and so I think that allows us to direct the city clerk to publish a summary and to bring it back at least 5 days before the proposed adoption. Have I got that right? Perfect. To Vice Mayor Coulson's earlier question, I do recall our former city attorney, and I don't know if this got cleaned up. All of these laws come from like the 40s. That there was a rule that effectively made it not okay to have llamas, but okay to have alpacas, something to do with cloven hoofs. So anyway, glad we got this one fixed. So that takes us on to item 10A. And this is a staff report on a conversation or on a proposal suggested by the Broadway Business District. And who do I hand this off to, Madam City Manager?
I believe Kevin Gardner is up for this one.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor Brownrigg and members of the council. Staff is asking the city council to provide direction on whether to move forward with an ordinance to introduce a pilot smoking ban in the Broadway Commercial District. The idea was proposed by representatives of the Broadway Business Improvement District in response to complaints over the years of smoking on the sidewalk, including increased pollution and littering. These complaints increased after the introduction of parklets on the street. The BID, Broadway Improvement District, or what we refer to as the BID, has also noted that smoking presents challenges to proprietors and employees of Broadway businesses since the smoke enters their workplaces. The Economic Development Subcommittee, consisting of Mayor Brownrigg and Vice Mayor Coulson, reviewed this request at their meetings in November and December of last year. And the subcommittee suggested that the Broadway BID could approach this as a pilot program that would be self-policed by merchants, given the difficulties of enforcing a ban. It was suggested that the pilot program be for a period of 6 months. The self-policing would involve education as an enforcement mechanism. Education could include storefront and or street signage, press releases, and reminders from business owners. In considering the idea, the council subcommittee asked for staff to visit each business with a petition to gauge interest and support. The economic development specialist, Joe Sanfilippo, who I note is also here in this meeting, visited each Broadway business with a petition asking whether the respondents would be in favor of a smoking ban in the district. Of the 38 businesses that were reached, 25 supported a ban, 1 did not, and 12 declined to comment. While smoking is prohibited within 20 feet of public buildings by state law, the ban proposed before the city council is intended to prohibit smoking in front of all street-facing Broadway businesses. When considering the pilot program, it's important to note that the city council would be using their police power to provide for the public health, safety, and welfare of Burlingame citizens by discouraging the inherently dangerous effects of cigarette smoke. For that reason, any extension of the program would need to consider applying the ban to other pedestrian-oriented districts in the city, including Burlingame Avenue. The Downtown Business Improvement District Board noted at their December meeting that they did not see a need for the ban in downtown at this time. So for this evening, the question is whether to move forward with an ordinance to introduce a pilot smoking ban in the Broadway Commercial District. An ordinance has not been drafted, so the intention is to receive direction from the council prior to investing staff time in developing an ordinance. Also, for the record, I'll note 2 emails that were sent to the council over the weekend in support of a pilot ban. First was from John Kervanian, president of the Broadway Business District, and Carrie Bittner, owner of the K Syrah business. I'll turn back to Mayor Brownrigg and Vice Mayor Coulson if they would like to add anything further as members of the Economic Development Subcommittee, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. And I would like to turn the microphone over to Vice Mayor Coulson to describe a little bit about, how we went about thinking about this at the Economic Subcommittee. So, Vice Mayor.
Thank you very much. The matter was brought to our attention by the Broadway Business Improvement District and the president, John Kervanian, who I believe is here with us tonight in the public. And they had done their own research, which I will tell you, we really appreciated, not having to have our staff spend hours and hours and hours looking at this. They had done a survey. The data, I believe, is in the memo you've been provided tonight. They went out and really hit the ground to talk to their community. And the mayor and I ultimately decided that with this being such a community-driven advocacy level, that that's different than sort of us putting something on someone. This is them asking for something. That would be appropriate to advance this to the council for discussion and consideration. We did spend a considerable amount of time, and City Manager Goldman, and also I believe Chief Matucci would agree with us that the enforcement is the most complicated element of this, in that it would be very difficult for someone to place a phone call. There's somebody smoking in front of my store, and the police to drop everything and run over and cite someone who's got a cigarette in their hand or whatever. So that the enforcement, expectations should be set and established at the beginning, so that people, really understand that this is going to be a little bit of, I don't want to use the word self-policing, but I would say this gives the business owners a little more wherewithal to basically be able to have a little sign saying non-smoking area, non-smoking district, and that a lot of the focus would be on education and outreach to the community, so people can understand what's going on. And it would be a pilot program. And then we would get feedback from the merchants and the neighbors, the public, and at that point, then we could make a more permanent proposal should the council warrant that, to believe it's warranted.
Thank you. That's a great summary. So with the presentation by Director Gardner and the Vice Mayor, I'll open it up to colleagues for any questions before we open it up to the public. So do colleagues have any questions they'd like to ask at this stage? Yes, Councilmember Beach.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the Broadway leadership bringing this to our attention, and really the hard work of the Vice Mayor and current Mayor for really vetting it and being thoughtful about the enforcement aspect and how it could be presented in a way that, in a pilot form. So just two questions. First, to clarify, it said Broadway facing businesses, but that means the side streets as well. It's the Broadway district in general. So just confirming the location is not just the businesses on Broadway, but could be the side streets as well.
That is the proposal, but that is up for discussion. There have been, different variations of the discussion. Does that apply to just the, entire front and back or block or what have you? But I think to address the issues that have been brought up by the bid, the proposal was to include both the Broadway facing and side street commercial businesses, and then presumably it would stop where the commercial district ends.
Got it. Okay, that's question number one. And question number two, during this pilot period, so there would be then no requirement of the police or traffic enforcement to come and issue tickets. It would be fully self-regulated by community education. But if we decided to continue this, then we'd have to make a decision about how we'd have to, I guess the vision is we'd look and see how many people were obstinate or violated, or we couldn't resolve it that way. And then we'd have to figure out what enforcement might look like after a 6-month period. But is there is that how it would go? So there would be no demands on our police or traffic enforcement at this point?
If I may punt that to either the city manager or city attorney, I don't want to speak for other departments.
Or administrative or code enforcement. I don't even know,
Sure.
whatever.
Yes.
I'll take a crack and which is because we talked through this. I think the Vice Mayor tried to allude to this too, which is we feel in advance that it's a little like the mask mandates were during COVID, which is it's going to take moral suasion and community buy-in to police activity. Nobody is going to respond in the time it takes to smoke a cigarette. So or put one out. And so I think we're all pretty realistic about that. And it was certainly a concern of the city managers from the outset that it not distract from higher and better uses of our police force. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment, the Vice Mayor or the city manager, but I think that's kind of where we came down on this.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, catching people in the act is not what our police are going to do. And so that came up during the Economic Development Subcommittee meeting. And so this is really about self-enforcement by the merchants. I don't expect any or very few tickets to be written or anything like that. This is an opportunity for, signage and gives the merchants a little bit of a leg up in terms of telling people, hey, you can't do that here.
Thanks.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know what, I always remember when we had the conversations about smoking in multifamily dwellings where it was just going to be an enforcement nightmare. And I was sensitive to that. And I really did think that was kind of a reason not to do it. Then we listened to some of the neighbors who have to deal with the smoke coming through their doors and everything. And we decided, I think I changed my mind on the dais on that one. And it was a struggle because I always felt kind of like, hard telling people what to do in their own homes. But I think that has been a success. And in spite of I don't know how many calls the police has gone on to enforce smoking in multifamily dwellings, but I think it's been a success because the people in the buildings can now quote the city's law as a way to get people to smoke somewhere else. And you see them smoking in front of their buildings instead of inside the units. And so in my mind, that was a success in spite of the concerns with enforcement. And I think that this one has kind of the same idea. Now the merchants can go out in front and say, you know what, you need to move because you can't smoke in front of my store. And I think that will go a long way. Now, I'm glad it's a pilot, and I think that it's important that we look to see how this works because it's something that if it does work well, we should carry to other parts of town. So again, reluctantly, because I hate to tell people that we don't want to be the nanny state, but reluctantly, I am in favor of this.
Thank you for that, Madam Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So I just had sort of a question, point of clarification. So when we discussed this, we talked about the Broadway facing, is kind of, so it's basically Broadway. But as I began to think about it, and with the inclusion of Ms. Bittner's comment, and she is slightly around the corner, I'm almost wondering if we shouldn't just extend it to the commercial portion of the side streets. And the reason I think that's important is because, say you're Sequoia Market, you've just opened. Somebody can't smoke necessarily in front of your store here, but your entrance is kind of on the side facing the other street. And so sort of like, where is that boundary? Like you walk around the corner and then there it is. Like I can smoke 1 foot on your door on this side, but not here. And it just seems that the side street businesses, which are only 1 or 2 businesses out, I would love my colleagues' thoughts on if it should just sort of wrap around to when there's a break in the commercial, it'll stop, but just to the commercial enclaves that are on the sort of adjacent side streets.
So
maybe down to like the post office, that kind of thing.
Thank you for that. And we can catch that when we're doing our wrap ups in terms of opinions, but Councilmember Stevenson.
Yeah, I'm curious if the discussion was across all smoking related products, not just cigarette or tobacco, but also vaping and others, or was it limited solely to the tobacco products?
So appreciate that distinction. I think what we're deciding tonight really is whether to instruct staff to take staff time to draft an ordinance. So some of these details we can give guidance for tonight, and it's a good conversation. But what I might suggest, if we don't have more questions, is to let the public speak, and then we can close up and offer final guidance to staff. So that being the case, and I don't see anybody shaking their heads, so let's go ahead and open this up to public comment, Madam City Clerk.
We have John Kervanian with his hand up. Go ahead, John.
Mr. Kervanian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, and members of the council for the opportunity to speak tonight. The council has addressed many great comments and questions in regards to other products. Instead of cigarettes, it would be e-cigarettes also. I would also recommend that we include the side streets. The Broadway bid only represents Broadway Avenue, not the side streets, but the business district are all the side streets included. So I would include as a business district, not the Broadway bid. And also I'm here to answer any questions you have. My statement was emailed as a public comment, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity you have taken and to address this issue. It's health reasons, environmental reasons. So thank you so much.
I'm going to actually ask you a question, Mr. Kavranian, if I might, which is, what is the answer for the restaurant worker or the bar worker who is a smoker, and now we're saying you can't smoke in front of the bar or behind the restaurant? Where are they supposed to smoke?
The majority of the employees don't smoke on Broadway. Some of them may smoke in the back area, and I would recommend that the employers and the employees work together. Maybe they can go to their vehicle, inside the vehicle, or maybe they can change their habits and not smoke. I don't believe we have many individuals that are smoking behind the buildings or on Broadway.
Okay, thanks. I just wondered if you guys had talked that through. I appreciate that answer. Councilmember Ortiz.
Yeah, if I could ask Mr. Kavranian a follow-up question to that. So you say the issue is not with employees. Is it mostly with patrons or people walking on the street?
It's people walking, visitors, and also patrons.
Okay, thank you.
Got it. Well, thank you, Mr. Kavranian, for always being public-minded and civic-minded and bringing this forward as an idea. Madam City Clerk, are there other comments?
Yes, we received an email from Carrie Bittner. She says, as the owner of a business just off Broadway, I wholeheartedly support the proposed ban on smoking and really hope it will extend to businesses adjacent to Broadway on the side streets. We make fresh food at my business and find the cigarette and other smoke that wafts in frequently to be distasteful and unhealthy. It has a negative impact on my business, on our health, and on the environment. I'm constantly gathering up butts from the sidewalks and my outdoor planters to try and keep them out of the storm drains. People with small children walk in the neighborhood, and we would love to see more people able to relax and chat outside without having to inhale secondhand smoke. I appreciate your consideration.
We appreciate your input.
And then I don't see any other hands raised on this.
Okay, well, in that case, then we'll close the public hearing. And at this point, I think staff is looking for any additional guidance. I sense consensus to proceed with an ordinance, but anybody want to offer specific comments or more specific guidance than this, or we can just let staff take the conversation as given. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just would ask of Mr. Kavranian that if the restaurants are, if some of the restaurant workers or some of the employees are struggling with regard to the ability for them to have a cigarette at their break, that we get appropriate feedback on that and try to work a solution out. As we all know, nicotine is an addictive drug, and there are people who, for a variety of reasons, rely on this as a way to manage stress or whatever. And I do want to be thoughtful to those people and figure out how we can help them either, like you say, kick the habit and move on to a healthier lifestyle, or figure out a proactive way for us to find either a smoking area somewhere behind one of the buildings or somewhere nearby that would be appropriate without having to relegate them to their cars. And that's just being sensitive to the realities of people who have addictions and suffer addictions.
Thank you for that, Madam Vice Mayor. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kind of reading the room and seeing that there appears to be consensus from the council. So looking forward to sort of the next task of drafting the ordinance, a couple of just implementation questions I have, or definition questions, really. So we've been talking about this in sort of a tobacco context, but what about cannabis? So somebody who is smoking cannabis, is that envisioned as something that might be captured in this? And then
I'll just speak. I think smoking is smoking.
Okay, great. And then chewing tobacco or smokeless tobacco, is that also something that is thought about here?
Just don't spit on the sidewalk.
I'm with Councilmember Ortiz on that. Anybody else have a different point of view? No. Okay.
Thank
So-
you.
Yeah, I think the issue is the side stream smoke, right? That's very invasive. So I think
But I do think that Councilman Ortiz does bring up a good point as a person who spent their life in a sport where chewing tobacco is very prevalent. I wouldn't mind including in there smokeless tobacco is fine so long as it is dispensed with in a proper fashion. It's not fair for our city staff and people to have to be cleaning up chewing tobacco in the garbage cans and everything. So whatever, like, please dispense with it and, you know, we'll make it clear that spitting it on the side streets or whatever is not appropriate.
So did we settle on how far around the side streets we're going to go?
We didn't settle. I would say it seemed as though there was a consensus that it should wrap. Does anybody disagree with that? I think if we can let staff look at the definition of the Broadway Business District, perhaps that's the border to use.
Okay.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Yeah, I would just echo Mayor Brownrigg, the need to include commercial interests that are wrapping on the side streets around the Broadway district. Access and 20-25 feet, you cover a lot of businesses on that side street if that's indeed the kind of the formidable barrier. So I think that's important.
Great. Mr. Gina, do you have any other questions you'd like elucidated?
No, thank you for the clarification, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. Then I think we're done here. I do want to finish by reiterating the comment that the vice mayor started with, which was we took this on because the community asked us to. And it wasn't just one member of the community. It was a number, and that we then verified in our own survey. I think your reservations, Mr. Ortiz, are well taken, and we all feel them, that we want to be careful when we make it difficult to do something that is in fact legal. But this one came from the community, and there are all the obvious secondary health benefits that affect other people. So this is one of those trade-offs that we always, that we often have to make. But I do say this came up because the community asked us to adopt it. So, okay, with that little spiel, I think we've given you enough guidance, Mr. City Attorney, and we'll just wait for your timetable. We know you have a lot going on, and I know obviously the Broadway business community will appreciate it, but they also know how busy our staff is. So, great. Well, thank you all. I'm going to say this may be the shortest meeting in the future. We have a lot of things to cover. But I am glad that we've come to the end of our agenda tonight. The next item is council committee and activities reports. For Mr. Councilmember Stevenson's sake, this is a time when if you've been engaged in something and it's helpful for the council to know what it is, then by all means share. You're also welcome to write a memo that can go in the packet as long as it's received the Wednesday before city council meeting. So that's what this item is for. And with that, yes, Vice Mayor Colson.
Thank you. I have just one small report out that is regarding my neighbors, and I see two of them are here. And my report out is that we have been having some emails and other conversations around the November 7th meeting we had that discussed and proposed 2 new traffic safety roundabouts on Occidental at Ralston and at Chapin. And I see they're here in the public comment section, and I believe they have written a letter to the council with, I believe, almost 30 neighbors in support of that project. So I just want to make sure you all know that will be coming in your email. And I want to thank them for coming tonight, and we'll continue that conversation. And it's so wonderful when your neighbors actually have a opportunity to get together and support the council and really be positive about some changes that we're making. So just be sure to read that letter signed by, I believe, about 28 or 30 neighbors.
We will, and thank you for that. And thanks to the neighbors for being here tonight. We do read all the communications that come in and appreciate everyone trying to make our roads safer. Councilmember Beach.
Thank you. Just a brief update for anybody who rides Caltrain. We had our monthly local policymakers group this past Thursday. And good news is that the electrification project, which was running a deficit, is now fully funded. But the big news for the riders is just pay really close attention to the weekend schedule. They're doing a lot of work for bringing the project home so that all those diesel cars are changed out to electric cars. But for the month of February in particular, and throughout the spring, there's going to be major changes to service interruptions, particularly on the weekends, really on the weekends, where there'll be, you can still get where you need to go, but there's bus bridges, so it's going to take a lot longer. It's probably the only time you'll hear Caltrain saying, consider alternative modes of transportation other than Caltrain on the weekend. So just make sure everybody checks the weekend change to schedules in the upcoming months, but particularly in February. Thanks.
Thank you for that update. Seeing nothing else to report, are there any future agenda items that people would like to suggest? We obviously just went through a goal setting session, which, by the way, we are committed, the city manager and I, to reporting out how we're going to manage these different suggestions, which are great. We will have that by the end of this month, something to report back to our colleagues for the work you all put into it. And thank you for that. But are there any other future agenda items that people would like to suggest? Okay, I see none. We do have several, all the suggestions from goal setting. So I'm sure our city manager is breathing a sigh of relief. We have acknowledgements. There are a number of different minute meetings from the Planning Commission and Traffic and Safety in our docket, which are always there, and we appreciate the work of the commissions. Now, the next item is adjournment, and I think there might be more than one to adjourn. And I believe very much that we should recognize everybody. So what I would ask is that each of my colleagues say what they want, and then we'll close the meeting in honor of everybody. And so only because I saw her hand go up first, I'll ask Councilmember Beach to start us off.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to suggest that one of the folks we close in memoriam in honor of was a wonderful community member, Susan Runyon, who was a beloved member of our community, a mom of a BHS student, BIS student, formerly a beloved Lincoln mom as well, a doctor in our community, currently was practicing as a staff physician at San Francisco VA healthcare system, also taught at UCSF, formerly was a primary care doctor at One Medical here in Burlingame, active member of the Peninsula Temple Shalom community, beloved mom, and her husband, Doug Ross, and 2 kids miss her terribly, as do many of us who were her friend, but just a magnificent doctor, practiced over 20 years, brought so much kindness and love to her patients and her family and friends, and she'll be terribly missed. She passed on January 2nd, and thank you for keeping her family and friends in your thoughts.
Thank you very much for that memorial. Vice Mayor Colson.
Thank you. Another young mother who is leaving us has left us, Marianne Arbide. She leaves her husband Jamal, her son Michael, and daughter Ileana, 29 and 25 respectively. Marianne, the way I came to know her was through her work at Peninsula Family Services. She was a fundraiser for them and chaired many of our luncheons and evening events. She passed away this last week after an 11-year battle with breast cancer. And her service was at St. Catherine's. It was just an incredibly beautiful memorial from her children and her husband. Part of our Palestinian community. She just was a multicultural and incredibly spiritual and wonderful woman who gave so much of herself to her family, her friends, and the schools, and the great need at Peninsula Family Services. So we will really miss Marianne in this community as well.
Thank you very much. And finally, Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to honor Bernie Cotter, who was a longtime parishioner at OLA. He died in December, and he was 90 years old. He was originally from Bronx, New York. He was born in 1932 of Irish parents. He went to Reardon High School, graduated from USF with his law degree, and practiced law in the area for many, many years. He's survived by 6 children, 19 great-grandchildren, and 19 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. He survived by a wife, Anne, who he married in 1956. Bernie had a wonderful sense of humor. Every time at the OLA Men's Club, he would get up and tell silly jokes, and he was just a wonderful, wonderful human being. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, all three of you, for those heartfelt memorials. It is a reminder of what a special place we live in, and how blessed we are to have the people in our lives that we do, and how to remember them every day, because it's not certain what tomorrow will bring. With that, I hope you'll join me in a moment of silence. Thank you all very much. Happy February 6th. And thank you again for those memorials. They were really, really touching. Thank you. And to everybody, good night.
Right.